The Gaza Ceasefire Agreement. The Gaza Ceasefire Agreement, scheduled to begin on January 19, 2025, is considered a crucial measure in the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It follows 15 months of repeated attacks on Gaza, resulting in an ever-increasing number of casualties. The agreement focuses on providing immediate relief for Palestinian communities that have faced ongoing fear and hardship, and finally returning Israeli and Palestinian hostages to their homes. Qatar, Egypt, and the United States worked to create this deal, reflecting a coordinated international effort to reduce violence. While it does not resolve deep-seated disagreements, it lays the groundwork for further negotiations. Many hope it will serve as a starting point for more durable arrangements. The truce is designed to address urgent humanitarian concerns, particularly in areas heavily affected by recent military operations. Analysts view it as a potential turning point that could reshape discussions about long-term peace. Although skepticism remains, the ceasefire may help reduce tensions for Palestinian civilians who have endured prolonged instability and horrifying violence under the relentless Israeli military siege. Observers see it as an attempt to offer a pause in hostilities and to encourage dialogue about the region's future. An overview of the ceasefire agreement. This ceasefire is planned to last 6 weeks and calls for a temporary halt to military activity. Israeli forces are expected to withdraw from crowded parts of Gaza, although they will keep a security zone along the border. The agreement allows up to 600 aid trucks to enter Gaza every day, which is meant to tackle the severe shortage of basic necessities. Observers have stressed the importance of these deliveries because many people in Gaza lack adequate food, water, and medical supplies. The deal also requires a phased exchange of detainees. Hamas will release 33 Israeli hostages, including minors and individuals with urgent medical needs, while Israel will free hundreds of the thousands of Palestinians held in Israeli detention centers, many of whom have never received formal charges and are unlawfully and arbitrarily detained. Negotiators aim to begin a second phase of talks after 16 days to discuss additional releases and the possibility of a complete Israeli troop pullout. Further uncertainties revolve around whether these arrangements can lead to lasting peace. Critics note that several past agreements have faltered when trust eroded or when specific terms were disputed. Observers question whether 6 weeks of calm will be enough to address deeper grievances tied to occupation, discrimination, and collective punishment. The planned withdrawal of Israeli forces from certain areas of Gaza could ease immediate tensions, but some doubt that it will result in a permanent shift. Many in the region remain skeptical, citing a history of short-lived truces that ended without tangible progress. Mediators hope that this pause in violence will create a more productive atmosphere for dialogue. They also emphasize that prompt and consistent delivery of humanitarian aid is essential for building confidence in the process. The success of these efforts depends on effective coordination among relief agencies, local authorities, and international partners. If trust improves, officials believe negotiations could proceed with a better chance of yielding lasting results. Humanitarian aid amidst devastation. Over 46,700 Palestinians have been killed in recent hostilities, and many more have been injured, numbers that may need revising due to discrepancies and underreporting in official figures. The destruction of critical infrastructure, including hospitals and schools, has made basic services unreliable. The ceasefire's provision for up to 600 daily aid trucks offers a potential lifeline for families who have struggled to find food, medical supplies, and safe shelter. However, the extensive damage to roads and facilities may complicate efforts to distribute these resources. Relief workers report challenges in reaching vulnerable communities, especially in areas that were heavily bombed. Residents often lack power, water, and access to reliable communication, making it difficult to know where help is most urgently needed. Many neighborhoods are filled with debris, and some have been reduced to rubble. Rebuilding efforts, even under ideal conditions, will take considerable time. Aid agencies emphasize that the region needs immediate deliveries of essential goods, as well as longer-term projects to restore critical infrastructure. A rapid start to these operations could reduce suffering and improve stability. The agreement also includes reopening the Rafah crossing with Egypt about 1 week into the ceasefire. This corridor will allow patients to seek specialized medical care outside Gaza, where hospitals have struggled to cope with the large number of wounded. Access to advanced treatment is vital, especially for those with complex injuries or chronic illnesses. The crossing has been shut in the past due to security concerns, limiting the movement of both individuals and supplies. Its reopening could ease pressure on local health facilities and offer relief to families who have few other options for serious medical conditions. Egyptian authorities will manage security at the crossing, while international organizations plan to assist with patient transfers. Some analysts see this step as a key indicator of whether the broader ceasefire can bring meaningful changes for daily life in Gaza. If the crossing remains reliably open, it may improve trust and signal a willingness to address humanitarian needs beyond immediate emergency relief. The fragile exchange of lives. A key part of the ceasefire is the plan for prisoner releases. Hamas will free 33 Israeli hostages, including women, children, and those with urgent medical conditions. In return, Israel will release hundreds of the thousands of Palestinians currently held in Israeli detention centers. In most cases, Palestinians are abducted and detained without formal charges or due process, and subjected to extreme torture and sexual abuse, conditions akin to kidnapping and enforced disappearance, rather than actual criminal detention. Officials describe this exchange as a step toward easing tensions, though concerns remain about whether the terms will be fully honored. The release of hostages and prisoners is intended to reduce one of the conflict's most emotionally charged issues. However, the uneven nature of these detentions continues to highlight deeper grievances about the justice system. Both groups have stressed that the ceasefire could collapse if the releases stall or if any side violates the agreement's conditions. This uncertainty adds pressure to a process that is already delicate, with many families watching anxiously for signs of progress. Negotiators have confirmed that the exchange will occur in phases to reduce the risk of sudden disruptions. Hamas insists on full compliance with the ceasefire terms and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces before all captives are freed. This condition reflects a broader demand for an end to military presence in Gaza, which has been a central point of dispute for years. Failure to meet these requirements could reignite hostilities and derail the agreement. Some observers caution that prisoner swaps are often fragile, especially when tied to larger political aims. Tensions run high whenever there is perceived favoritism or non-compliance. Advocates of the ceasefire believe that a successful exchange could help build trust. They also hope it will open the door to more comprehensive talks about border controls, resource allocation, and long-term governance in Gaza. Yet the negotiations remain delicate, and many note that a single violation by either side could undermine months of diplomacy. Addressing root causes or sidestepping realities, the ceasefire offers temporary relief, but does not confront the deeper factors driving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Issues like occupation, land rights, and unequal access to basic resources remain unresolved. Some international organizations have labeled recent actions in Gaza as war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, which have heightened anger among Palestinian and Arab communities. Israel, in turn, cites security threats and repeated rocket attacks when defending its military campaigns. Critics argue that a focus on short-term truces overlooks a long-standing pattern of discrimination and violence. These critics believe that without systemic change, any pause in fighting is likely to be fleeting. Many residents question how genuine peace can emerge when blockades and military incursions continue to shape daily life. They also note that resentment has deepened with each new round of violence, making reconciliation more difficult. Although the ceasefire may reduce immediate risks, it does not include a clear plan for tackling core grievances. As a result, the underlying conflict remains unresolved. Gaza's future governance also remains unclear. Hamas has been in control of the territory since 2007, yet both Israel and the United States reject any long-term arrangement that includes its leadership. No alternate governing body has been proposed, leaving many in Gaza uncertain about who will oversee reconstruction or manage public services. This gap complicates efforts to restore normal life, as political legitimacy remains in question. Some argue that excluding Hamas from governance is unrealistic, especially since it maintains considerable influence and support among certain segments of the population. Others insist that any genuine path to peace must involve a new framework that does not rely on groups labeled as extremist. This principle applies not only to Hamas, but also to the current Israeli far-right government, which is aggressively pursuing clear expansionist policies in the region. Without a clear resolution, the region risks sliding back into conflict once the ceasefire ends. As international donors prepare to assist with rebuilding, questions persist about who will administer funds and ensure that aid reaches those most in need. Until these governance issues are addressed, progress may remain limited. Israeli bombings after ceasefire deal. Despite the announcement of a ceasefire, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza intensified and resulted in at least 123 Palestinian deaths, including 33 children and 33 women. More than 270 individuals were injured. Local officials describe the attacks as especially severe in areas already damaged by previous bombings. The timing of these strikes has raised questions about Israel's commitment to the agreement, which was intended to stop hostilities. Many observers express concern that such escalations undermine confidence and may lead Palestinian groups to question whether negotiations will yield meaningful change. Islamic Jihad issued warnings that increased violence before the ceasefire takes effect could jeopardize the safety of Israeli captives. Some also point out that pre-ceasefire offensives have occurred in earlier conflicts, with each faction seeking strategic advantage before an official pause. Humanitarian agencies warn that the continued bombing adds to the region's extensive infrastructure problems and worsens the situation for civilians who already face shortages of essential goods and services. Observers note that this surge in airstrikes before a truce is a repeated pattern in past conflicts. Armed forces may seek to claim strategic positions or weaken adversaries before halting operations. Human rights groups have criticized this approach, saying it causes needless civilian casualties and destroys vital infrastructure in the final hours before a ceasefire. The resulting damage can take years to repair, leaving communities without homes or access to basic utilities. This approach also erodes trust in negotiated agreements, since it fuels skepticism about whether the ceasefire will be respected once it officially begins. Diplomats have urged all involved factions to end military activities immediately and to honor the terms of the pending truce. If these calls are ignored, the risk of a complete breakdown in negotiations increases. Many families in Gaza, already living with the trauma of past wars, worry that renewed violence could escalate even after the ceasefire is set to start, further delaying any hopes for long-term stability. International roles and regional implications. Qatar, Egypt, and the United States are credited with mediating this ceasefire and will monitor its execution. Qatar's ties with Hamas position it as a crucial liaison in maintaining open communication. Egypt's historical role in regional affairs, along with its border access to Gaza, adds strategic leverage. The United States brings financial influence and diplomatic reach, aiming to ensure that promises are met and that aid is delivered promptly. Although these nations have helped calm tensions, the agreement's success hinges on cooperation from all involved parties. If any faction views the mediators as biased or fails to see tangible benefits, the ceasefire could weaken. This reliance on external oversight underscores the complex power dynamics at play. Supporters of the truce claim that continued international engagement is necessary to prevent a swift return to violence. Critics counter that foreign intervention can sometimes sideline local voices or promote short-term stability without addressing the fundamental causes of the conflict. The outcome remains uncertain. The ceasefire could also influence regional relationships. Neighboring nations are closely watching developments to gauge whether similar measures might apply elsewhere. Public opinion in countries that have traditionally supported Israel may shift if the ceasefire highlights the humanitarian impact of prolonged hostilities. At the same time, leaders throughout the Middle East may use these events to shape their own policies on security, alliances, and mediation efforts. A durable truce in Gaza could serve as a template for resolving other localized conflicts, but only if underlying issues are addressed rather than postponed. Analysts warn that without serious engagement in root problems, any ceasefire risks becoming a brief lull instead of a sustainable peace. There is also potential for increased regional cooperation in areas such as trade, cross-border infrastructure, and shared energy projects, if tensions ease. While no single deal can resolve all disputes, progress in Gaza may create momentum for further dialogue. The lasting impact of this truce will become clearer in the coming weeks. A tentative path forward, this ceasefire presents a chance to reduce violence and create room for immediate relief work. By halting hostilities, authorities can facilitate deliveries of food, water, and medical aid to areas that need them most. Rebuilding essential services, such as power grids and hospitals, could begin if security holds. Many analysts describe this agreement as a critical test of diplomatic resolve, since previous truces have collapsed when tensions flared again. The short-term focus is on stabilizing civilian life and preventing further casualties. Over time, officials and community leaders may use this period to re-engage in peace talks that address deeper concerns. While few believe these negotiations will instantly solve all disputes, the hope is that a climate of reduced hostility will encourage more open dialogue. The conflict's complexity means that any resolution must involve compromises on governance, security arrangements, and access to resources. Although a lasting solution remains uncertain, supporters of the truce see it as a necessary first step. Long-term peace depends on a thorough approach to the region's fundamental problems. Advocates emphasize that human rights must be upheld and that occupation-related disputes require legal and political solutions. They also point out that any settlement must ensure equitable access to resources, fair governance structures, and accountability for actions taken during military operations. If these issues remain unaddressed, sporadic violence may continue to erupt. Proponents of the ceasefire argue that it could serve as a model for diplomatic engagement, provided it is supported by robust international monitoring. Critics caution that without a genuine willingness to compromise, the agreement might simply reset the clock until the next crisis. The coming weeks will reveal whether the parties can maintain a pause long enough to begin tackling core concerns. For civilians, the main priority is an end to destruction, displacement, and fear. A durable resolution would allow daily life to resume, offering hope that future generations will not endure the same cycle of conflict.